Understand, this woman was forced into a conservatorship. I personally believe she was having a breakdown because the paparazzi wouldn't leave her alone and she wanted privacy. Let's not laugh at what happened to Britney Spears. I think she's lived through a lot, and I say that as someone who just has like the most compassion in my heart for artists like that because of the things that Kanye told me personally and attempted to tell the world was everybody laughed and mocked him.
Britney Spears just dropped a nuclear allegation. Diddy mistreated her at his parties. But this isn't just about one night. It's about a 20-year web of control and the men who allegedly kept her trapped. In her 2023 memoir, she wrote, "I gave up my freedom in exchange for naps with my children." That line, now echoing across every platform, sounds less like nostalgia and more like an admission of captivity. For years, we were told Britney's conservatorship saved her life. Now, it might look like it saved certain men from exposure.
Been afraid of coming forward. They've been afraid of what he could potentially do to them within the industry, what he could do to them professionally, maybe even personally. And so yes, it's been a dark secret they've held on to for a very, very long time.
When the story broke, it wasn't a quiet revelation. It hit in the middle of Diddy's 2024 indictment, when federal prosecutors described a pattern of exploitation and a lifestyle built on fear. In that context, Britney's claim landed like a match on dry ground. We know her father, Jamie Spears, ruled her finances and body for 13 years. But Diddy's parties, his infamous white parties in the Hamptons and Miami, were the backdrop for a different kind of control, one built on celebrity silence. Photos from the early 2000s show every power player smiling under white linen, but insiders say what happened behind the velvet ropes wasn't all sparkling luxury and glamour. The federal investigation into Diddy now paints those gatherings as spaces where younger stars were vulnerable, groomed, and kept compliant. If Britney was there, and multiple insiders claim she was, her so-called breakdown may have begun long before the tabloids caught up.
Referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil, astroglide.
The pattern is chilling. Jamie took her legal rights. Diddy allegedly took her agency, and together they built a system that silenced her for more than a decade. When Britney lost control of her life in 2008, the public saw a distressed celebrity. Few realized it coincided with the exact years Diddy's empire reached peak power. His record label, fashion lines, and television projects were everywhere, and his social circles overlapped with Hollywood's biggest influencers. It's within that overlap, insiders now whisper, that Britney's downfall was sealed. By the time Kevin Federline published his memoir, You Thought You Knew, in 2024, the ground was already shifting. He detailed a disturbing scene, his sons waking up to Britney standing in their doorway holding a knife, calling it one of the hardest nights of my life. Whether real or exaggerated, that account fueled the narrative that she was unstable. But what it didn't explain was the conservatorship's extremes. No driving, no cash access, no ability to remove an implanted device that prevented her from having another baby. For someone as wealthy and accomplished as Britney, those restrictions were draconian. Meanwhile, Diddy's lavish parties were legend. Political donors, athletes, executives, everyone wanted an invite. Cameras were banned, NDAs were routine. Former attendees have since described a different atmosphere entirely, a carnival of power, one called it, where those who refused to play along were never invited back. Now that federal indictments mention trafficking and coercion, those old stories sound less like exaggeration and more like early warnings. Sources close to Britney's camp have whispered for years that her so-called mental collapse wasn't the product of illness, but the fallout from what happened at those gatherings. They say she tried to tell people, her team, her family, but instead of being believed, she was placed under total control. One insider put it bluntly, the conservatorship wasn't just about money, it was about keeping her quiet. We can't verify that claim, but it fits a timeline that's impossible to ignore.
Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France. Diddy said, you don't do a freak off, I'm going to release one of the freak off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate.
In 2008, when a Los Angeles court granted Jamie Spears control of her person and estate, Diddy was hosting back-to-back events in New York and Miami. That same year, industry gossip linked several rising stars to his inner circle, and federal investigators now allege that's when the trafficking network took shape. It's a disturbing parallel. As Diddy consolidated his influence through music, fashion, and nightlife, Britney's autonomy vanished.
He cornered me. And then he asked me with his arm up, he asked me, "How you doing?" I'm kind of like, wow, what the heck? Very uncomfortable. And then he rubbed his hand down my breast. He said, "If you need anything at all, you let me know."
Her memoir, The Woman in Me, released 15 years later, reads differently now. At the time, it was hailed as closure. Today, it sounds like evidence. She wrote that her father's rule forced her to play by the rules just to see her sons. She described being forced to take medication, perform in Vegas, and smile for cameras, while begging to end the arrangement. And yet, the men around her profited. Her father collecting a salary, her management firm taking commissions, and her brand generating millions. We've learned from court records that Jamie even installed surveillance cameras in her bedroom. That kind of control doesn't happen in isolation.
And what's really going to be interesting is the parade of celebrities who we expect to be mentioned and or called into that courtroom. You know, people who we hadn't heard about prior, like Mike Myers, you know, Austin Powers, Mike Myers. Why is he getting called? Why is he on the witness list? That'll be fascinating. And then, of course, there are the no-name, quote unquote, women who are going to have to find every ounce of courage they have.
When Diddy's indictment arrived in September 2024, those parallels resurfaced. Prosecutors described his empire as a machine of manipulation that stretched from studios to private jets. They cited footage of him attacking Cassie Ventura in a hotel hallway years earlier. The images shocked even longtime fans, confirming a pattern of domination long whispered about. And now Britney's new allegation ties her name directly to that world.
I'm not really sure why the paparazzi have me going on a plane looking like I'm wearing a Jason mask. It doesn't even look like me. I don't know why I have a torch in my hand, honestly. But anyways, it's my birthday. I'm not turning 42. I'm turning 5 this year. I'm turning 5 years old, and I have to go to kindergarten.
As shocking as it sounds, there were hints before. In 2022, social media conspiracy groups speculated that Britney had been replaced by body doubles or artificial versions of herself online. At the time, it sounded absurd, a viral distraction, but buried inside that chaos were consistent claims that the real Britney was being kept offline, her public image managed by handlers. Hairstylists pointed out that her hair color never changed length between posts. Digital analysts claimed her videos looked pre-recorded. Mainstream outlets dismissed it as fan hysteria. But the narrative of control had already taken hold. Now, with her accusation against Diddy, those old suspicions feel newly charged. Even Kristen Cavallari's anecdote, Britney allegedly texting her after a Clone Theory podcast, added to the unease. According to Cavallari, the message was rambling, emotional, and unsettling. She described it as one long, run-on sentence. For many, it proved nothing. For others, it showed a woman desperate to reclaim her story, while still surrounded by manipulation. We can't separate any of this from Kevin Federline's renewed visibility. His memoir arrived just as Diddy's criminal case exploded, and his version of events cast Britney as dangerous and unstable. He wrote that their sons were afraid of her, that she used substances, that her breakdown was inevitable. But even those stories raise questions. Why release them now? And who benefits from portraying Britney as unpredictable when Diddy's empire faces collapse? Some analysts point to timing as no coincidence.
So it's just another form to silence a man, to humble a person. You know how sometimes you gotta humble somebody?
You're right.
Yeah, I think he's being humbled right now. Which it took a long time. It takes a long time to humble an arrogant person.
The deeper we look, the more connections appear. During Britney's conservatorship, many of her professional handlers had business ties that overlapped with Diddy's network. Entertainment lawyers, PR firms, and even security companies worked for both camps. In one case, a corporate filing shows a Los Angeles firm paid by Britney Spears also listed a Sean Combs-affiliated venture as a client that same year. On its own, that's not proof of coordination, but it suggests proximity, and proximity is where silence often lives. Behind the scenes, the culture of protection around powerful men in music was already under scrutiny. By the time the federal government raided Diddy's properties, more than 24 civil suits had been filed, some describing organized coercion. The documents referred to employees and affiliates assisting in recruitment and intimidation. Federal investigators claim the network spanned states and involved people in entertainment, nightlife, and finance. Britney's name wasn't in those filings, but her allegation now places her inside that world, if only for a moment in time. What unsettles observers most is how her conservatorship mirrored the very structure prosecutors now accuse Diddy of building. Both relied on fear, secrecy, and money to maintain control. Both thrived on silence. Britney was told she couldn't speak publicly without permission. Diddy's alleged victims say they signed DAS under threat. For years, neither story made it past the tabloids. As we trace the overlap, the years line up with eerie precision. 2008, Britney loses her rights. Diddy's events dominate the Hamptons. 2011, surveillance placed in her home. His brand expands into luxury spirits and media. 2013, she attempts to end the conservatorship. He launches a television network. Every milestone in her confinement echoes a milestone in his empire. That's what makes her new allegations so explosive. It suggests their timelines weren't parallel by chance.
I mean, let's just be real for a second. There are a lot of lawyers who call this legal extortion. And that this is the way the legal system works, which is you threaten somebody with reputational harm. And in this case, it's interesting that Jay-Z, who's very wealthy, said it would be financial ruin.
Even Ye, back in 2022, hinted at a shadow system controlling major stars, naming Diddy among those he believed were under the thumb of powerful entities. At the time, the statement was dismissed as another rant, but in hindsight, it sits uneasily beside the growing evidence of how the industry protected certain figures while punishing others. When Britney's conservatorship ended in 2021, fans celebrated. They believed the nightmare was over. But Kevin Federline's later warning, claiming her situation is, quote, racing towards something irreversible, reignited fears that something deeper remained hidden. His plea for a Save Britney movement sounded dramatic, yet his words mirrored the language of Diddy's defense lawyers, who argued that prosecutors were fueling online conspiracy. Both sides, in their own ways, framed Britney as unstable and Diddy as a target of hysteria. That symmetry can't be ignored. As of late 2024, Diddy awaits trial on trafficking and coercion charges, with more than 20 civil cases pending. Britney, meanwhile, is rebuilding her life in the shadow of renewed media scrutiny. She's launched a jewelry line, made erratic online posts, and cut off communication with most former associates. When Kevin's book excerpts dropped, she responded through a representative. All she cares about are her kids. That calm statement belied the storm forming around her. Now, with her direct allegation linking Diddy to her trauma, questions multiply. Did Britney Spears strike deals to protect his allies? Did the conservatorship conceal something far larger than family dysfunction? And why have so many people in power, lawyers, managers, producers, remained silent even as these stories collide? Investigators close to the Diddy case have confirmed that federal prosecutors are reviewing claims from multiple public figures whose names surfaced in related suits. They haven't confirmed Britney's involvement, but her statement has already shifted the public narrative. If she testifies, it would be the first time one of pop culture's biggest icons directly connects her abuse to the industry's elite gatherings. Still, uncertainty clouds everything. Conspiracy theories fill the gaps, from body doubles to artificial posts, drowning out legitimate questions about accountability. Yet beneath the noise, a pattern persists, a network of men who controlled women's bodies, careers, and voices while calling it protection. Whether in courtrooms or behind mansion gates, the system looked the same. We've seen this before, when Hollywood power brokers fell under similar investigations, when silence bought influence, when victims were branded unstable to preserve profit. The difference now is that one of those alleged victims happens to be Britney Spears, and the man at the center of her accusation is facing federal prosecution. That convergence could unravel decades of secrecy inside the music world.
Possibly, you know, it's the federal government building a case against you. Maybe you would go for the lesser offer, but again, that would be having to admit that he had did something wrong. And the defense has always maintained that he is innocent, he has done nothing wrong, that this is just, these are just ex-girlfriends that are mad, like just all these types of things that the defense is arguing. But again,
when we look at the money trail, the symmetry is unsettling. Under her conservatorship, Britney's Vegas residency grossed hundreds of millions of dollars, while Diddy's fashion ventures pushed him into billionaire status. Both stories share one crucial thread: silence. She worked under supervision while he thrived in secrecy. Her earnings went to men managing her image. His profits funded a lifestyle now under criminal scrutiny. Two different kinds of power, but both built on compliance and control. In 2024, as Diddy's legal walls began to close in, Kevin Federline resurfaced with a warning. Britney's situation was racing towards something irreversible. It sounded melodramatic then, now it feels like foreshadowing. He hinted that her freedom came with strings, that powerful figures wanted her to remain unpredictable, so no one would take her seriously. Behind that comment lies a chilling implication that Britney was never truly freed, only repositioned once the spotlight shifted to Diddy.
Did Phil explain why he's speaking out now?
He said he's speaking out because he believes Diddy's a predator. He wants accountability, and he doesn't want someone like this to run unchecked in the future.
We've since learned that several insiders from her publishing team have whispered about heavy legal editing before her memoir's release. According to one of them, the manuscript originally contained names and locations that were deemed too dangerous. Lawyers allegedly stepped in, sanitizing entire chapters. The one name Britney fought to keep? Diddy's. They say she described a night at a lavish event years ago that changed how she saw the industry forever. That scene, whatever it was, never made it to print. If those passages still exist somewhere in a private draft, they could expose the hidden intersection between two of music's most scrutinized legacies.
This is the flight where Diddy said to her, she testified that he showed her a video of a freak-off that she participated in and said, if you don't participate in another freak-off when we get to New York, I'm gonna put this video out. I'm gonna send it to your mother.
And that's coercion.
She testified to that.
If the jury
they believed her,
yeah.
That's coercion, and they would have Cassie.
Meanwhile, the evidence around Diddy continues to grow. Court filings outlined shell companies, secret payments, and even overseas transfers linked to individuals described as facilitators. Prosecutors allege that those businesses helped move both money and people in and out of his orbit. If those allegations hold, the empire wasn't just about fashion or entertainment. It was about control on a global scale. And that brings us back to Britney's 13-year conservatorship managed through an almost identical web of accounts, lawyers, and so-called guardians. The parallels are too precise to ignore. Some of Diddy's former associates have started cooperating with federal investigators, naming executives and security staff who handled recording equipment during private gatherings. Those same sources insist that multiple celebrities were filmed without consent, later pressured into loyalty. The FBI has not confirmed the existence of any celebrity footage, but several entertainment lawyers are already preparing for possible subpoenas. If even fragments of those recordings resurface, they could rewrite entire chapters of early 2000s pop culture.
So look, she could be joking, like making a joke about getting older, and maybe people could have taken that too far, but people obviously have their concerns because in each video, she doesn't seem herself. She hasn't seemed herself in a very long.
Britney's current team remains quiet, though social media watchers note her posts have grown more erratic since Diddy's indictment. There's speculation that she's reacting in real time to what she knows privately. In one cryptic video, she danced to a vintage track produced by Diddy in 2001, captioning it with a single word, truth. Within minutes, fans flooded her comments asking if she was sending a signal. Her account deleted the post hours later. Whether coincidence or message, it shows how closely her story is now tied to his. Industry veterans are starting to speak out cautiously. A former road manager for a major pop act claims he saw Britney at a Combs-hosted event in the mid-2000s looking uncomfortable, like she didn't want to be there. He says that same night, her security team abruptly pulled her out before sunrise, and within weeks she vanished from public appearances. We can't verify his account, but the timeline matches the period leading up to her highly publicized breakdown and eventual conservatorship. If true, it suggests the beginning of her confinement was not about instability, it was about silencing someone who had seen too much.
He never would have prosecuted him if it was just a manic.
They prosecuted him on all these other things, and they did find him guilty of this, so that still counts.
The jurors don't always get it right. We don't have to agree with their decision.
I just don't know because I wasn't sitting in the courtroom. You got to see the witnesses. Why didn't they believe Cassie? Why didn't they believe Jane?
By the time Diddy's properties were raided in late 2024, investigators seized digital drives and ledgers spanning 2 decades. Among the seized material were references to guests of interest, coded initials, and dates matching celebrity events. Analysts noticed entries labeled with both music and film figures, some of whom have since issued statements denying involvement. Britney's initials were not confirmed, but fans online have dissected every line, convinced she's hidden somewhere in that archive. Rumors are swirling that prosecutors may call celebrity witnesses to describe what they experienced at Diddy's private events. Legal analysts speculate that Britney could be among those approached. If she agrees to testify, it would mark her first public statement under oath since her conservatorship ended. Her words could connect 2 of the biggest scandals in modern entertainment history. But insiders doubt she'll ever take that stand. They believe powerful forces are still working to ensure she stays out of it.
How many people came through his orbit? How many people could this have happened to? And how did he get away with it for so long?
Britney's freedom on paper doesn't guarantee safety in practice. Friends say she feels watched, that she believes her phones are compromised. Whether paranoia or proof, the fear is real enough to keep her isolated, The same system that once controlled her may now depend on her silence more than ever. She's the only person who lived inside both worlds, the legal cage of conservatorship and the cultural cage of Diddy's social empire. And yet, through all of it, she remains the one person who could bring everything crashing down. Her story, if ever told in full, could expose how celebrity, money, and manipulation intertwine at the highest levels of entertainment. It could reveal how two powerful men, one her father, one her former friend, built empires on the same foundation of control. Britney's free now, but the men who controlled her are still in the shadows. Jamie Spears is still a free man, and Britney, she's the only one who knows the full truth. The question is, will she ever be allowed to tell it? But what do we think? Will she stay silent, or will she finally bring down the empire that built her cage? Let us know your take in the comments. Until then, we'll keep watching the story unfold. Stay curious, stay alert, and remember, every secret in Hollywood has a timeline.